Hey, welcome back to the channel. And in honor of my birthday, I am I'm hosting a game jam. The deadline is to have your submission before February 10th. I'll put details in the description. But leading up to the game jam, I'm going to be doing a series of tutorials to kind of help folks who either have never published to itch.io before or have never built to WebGL, or maybe they've never built a game at all. And so I'm just going to show how easy it is to build kind of a vertical slice of a game. You don't need to spend all 21 days that's left of the game jam working on this game. Maybe you don't have time for that. Maybe you only have 30 minutes. So my goal during this episode is I'm going to try to build a playable game in only 10 minutes. So here in my editor, I have this free asset called Editor Timers. You can get it on the Unity Asset Store. I think it's still up there. And so I'm going to start just like this. Now, if you've never seen my channel before, I use visual scripting. The visual scripting tool I use is called Playmaker. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to not cheat, but I'm just going to have that docked over here for me. Okay, so let's do this. Ready, set, go. All right, so the first thing I need is a ground. So I'm going to right click 3D object and I'm going to go with a cube. I don't go with a plane because if I'm ever dealing with physics and colliders, I want it to be thick. Otherwise, sometimes the stuff falls through the ground. So I'm just going to call this ground. And then while I'm doing that in my assets folder, I'm going to create a new folder to stay organized. And I'm going to call this materials. And then I'm going to go into my materials folder, right click, go to create, and I'm going to create a new material. And I'm just going to make it green for the ground. And that's green enough. And then let's just go ahead and drop that onto the cube. The ground is already zeroed out. Swell. So I'm just going to take the X up to 10 and maybe the Z up to 30. All right, and so that's going to be my little play area. Okay, the next thing I need is some obstacles. So I'm going to right click again, create a 3D object, cube, and I'm going to go ahead and right click on the transform and reset, zero it out. And we're just going to call this F2 obstacle. And I'm just going to leave it white. Let's bring it back here a little bit. And, I guess up a little bit too. So I don't really want it to be that high of an obstacle, but I do want it to be an obstacle. And let's bring the Z in quite a bit because it doesn't need to be that deep. And then let's make the X 10 wide. Cool. All right, so that's an obstacle. And I want several obstacles for this example. So I'm just going to Control D and Control D and Control D. There's my obstacles. Now I want a goal. So I'm going to right click 3D object and I'm going to go cylinder for this. And I'm just going to call this goal. And I'm going to go ahead and reset the transform, but I'm going to move it all the way to the back here. And then I'm probably going to go ahead and scale this up as well. Let me move in. Grab that one. And I'm just going to scale it up. I don't really care that it's going through the ground. But let's create a new material for this. This one didn't save. Actually, I'm going to save that as green because if you're doing my game jam, I've made it limited to only 5 materials. So you want to make sure you name them the colors because you'll have to reuse them a lot. All right, so we'll create a material, but I am going to call this one my goal material. And I'm going to make it transparent. Click on here. Let's make it a little bit yellowish. All right, and then just take the goal and drop it in there. I didn't make it transparent though. Got to adjust the alpha. Boom, there's our goal. Now let's create a player. All right, so whenever you're working with a player, especially in 3D space, a lot of times it's a good idea to just start with an empty game object. So I'm gonna create an empty game object. I'm gonna reset it, and I'm just gonna call this my player. Now, part of the problem though is because the top of the cube is not at 0, 0, 0. So if I go and look at my player now, I'm actually kind of in the middle of the cube. So that should be able to be fixed by just going 0.5. And so now I should be like right at the top of the cube. And just to give myself a little bit more wiggle room, I'm gonna go 0.51. All right, so that's my player, and let's move it forward just a little bit. But what's going to be the mesh of my player? I'm going to right-click on my player, go to 3D object. I'm going to create a capsule, but I'm going to remove the capsule collider. And then my capsule should just be able to go up 1.1. And let's see where our player is. Nope, not 1. It's just 1. There we go. All right, so that looks good. Making sure my capsule's facing the right direction. Fantastic. So on my player, I'm going to add a component, and it's called a character controller. And this is going to put a little, it's not quite a rigid body, but it is a rigid body, kind of. But one thing I have to look at is it's putting it at the center of the pivot point. So you can kind of see its outline is going through the ground. So I need to adjust my center, which if I just go 0.5, that's not enough. If I go 1.1 maybe. Is that perfect or was that too much? That was too much. So so 1 is what it wants. All right. It is happy with 1, it looks like. Fantastic. All right, so I have my player. Just to make it a little bit clearer, I'm going to create one more 3D object. I'm going to call this a cube. And I'm just going to create a new material. And I'm just going to call this one black. And come in here, got myself a black material. And I'm going to drop it on that cube. And then let's just take this. And I want to move my cube up. And let's shrink it down a bit. I need these sides to come in. No, you know what? I'm going to leave the sides there. All right, so that's kind of representing that's the front of the player. All right, how much time do I got left? Still a little bit over 5 minutes. Okay, so how am I going to move my player? So one thing that I required in my game jam is to use the new input system. So I'm going to come over here to add component, and I'm going to call this player. No, I'm going to call this input. I don't have the new input system installed. All right, so I had to reset the whole scene and everything. So we're just going to start back up at 5 minutes. I think that's more than generous. Here we go. 5 minutes. All right, or more than fair. Now I'm going to add a component, and here we should have player input. So I'm going to put player input in here, but I don't have any action sets yet. So I'm going to go ahead and create actions, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call these input actions. And yeah, we'll save it there. So it automatically creates almost everything we need by default. So I got move, look, fire. I'm only going to use move out of here, but I need one more, and that's for jumping. I want to be able to jump, so I'm going to create a jump one. It's going to be action type button, and there is no bindings, but we can go ahead and make one. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to click listen, I'm going to hit space bar, there's the space bar, and the control scheme it'll be in is keyboard and mouse, but I don't really have to have that there. All right, so we're good there. Let's save that. I'm going to go ahead and drop my camera as well into this camera slot. Not that it really matters what we're doing it, but I also need to put I want to put the camera actually behind the player. So let's bring my game window over here so we can see what we're seeing. I want to reset the transform of my camera. I got just under 4 minutes left, and let's move our camera up. I want to angle this, rotate this down. All right, so now we need to actually make this player move. So I'm going to right click on the Playmaker tab while I have the player selected and go to Add FSM. And I'm going to call this FSM Movement. And the main thing we want to do is we want to be able to move this character controller. So I'm just going to double click here in the empty state, and I'm going to type controller. And we're going to use simple move because I don't want it to care about going up in the air. So here we have controller move, but I don't want to mess with the y-axis. So here's controller simple move. There it is. And so we're going to move this. We don't have a move vector yet, but I'll go ahead and create the variable move vector. And I want my speed to be pretty fast. I'm going to go with 5. I'm not going to do a falling event. So now we got to get that move vector. So we're going to use the input system, the new input system. So I'm going to go down to player input category because I am using Playmaker. And I want to get player input get move vector. Just double clicked and right click move to top. And so I'm going to do it based on the owner. Now I got to find the input action I want. And I want player move. And it's mapped on the XYZ, or on the X and Z. I want it to be relative to the player, not the camera, because the camera's angled weird. I'm not going to do anything with the multiplier, and store the move vector as move vector. So now we should be able to move, but I want to be able to jump as well. So I'm going to double click, and here we have player input button events. And I'm going to do it on the owner, and the input I want is player jump. And I want an is pressed event, create a new event, call this jump. And go ahead and create the event, hold control, drag off. We have a new state. This is going to be our jumping state. And then I'm going to do controller jump. There we go. And I'm going to do on the owner, jump height, 0.5 should be fine. Let's go ahead and make the fall multiplier even higher. And landed event, I'm going to do a new event, landed. And that'll bring us back to the normal move state. All right, I think we're mostly good there. I have just over a minute left. The last thing I want to do is I want to go to my goal, and I want to make the capsule collider actually a trigger, and then go back to my player. I'm going to add a new FSM, and I'm going to make this a trigger event. And I'm not going to worry about the collide tag right now. Oh, you know what? We can do one. Go to my capsule. No, go to my goal. I'm going to create a tag, new tag. add it, goal. Now that didn't actually add it to the goal, so now I'm going to go back to the goal and then choose that tag I created, just over a minute left still. And then on my player, I'm going to trigger event collide tag goal, send the event win, boom, control click, drag over, and then I'm going to right click UI panel. Okay, and let's right click now UI Text Mesh Pro, import Text Mesh Pro Essentials with 40 seconds left. It's eating into my time a bit. All right, took 4 seconds. And then we're just going to make this say you win. All right, and let's make sure that it's centered all across the board and make it something that's a little bit more visible. And let's make it bigger size. And let's stretch the text to where it fills the panel. Control Shift, click on that, you win. And then I'm just going to deactivate that canvas, go to the player here, activate game object, and close that and specify the game object to activate, going to be the canvas. With 5 seconds left, did I successfully build what I consider a playable game? Let's go ahead and stop that timer and let's see how I did without testing anything. I'm sure something's not going to work. Let's hit play and see what happens. All right, well, my player didn't fall through the ground. I'm having an error down here, but I think that's just because of my preferences. I didn't say I was using the new input system, but let's see. I can move left and right pretty fast. I can move forward. Oh, the jumping. Because I'm moving so fast and my obstacles aren't that wide, my step is just going right over that. All right, but my jumping is working. I could jump over those steps, but I didn't make my jump height enough. One way to fix that is I can make my step offset, I think I want it to be lower. Yeah, there we go. And then if I go to my movement FSM and I go to jumping, let's make my jump height 1. And if we go in jump, there we go. Jump, jump, jump. Oh, what did I run into? Jump, jump. I jumped too late. Jump. And then I win. Yay! We made a game in less than 10 minutes. You can do it too. Just throw some of this stuff together. Check out tutorials online. The whole idea of the game jam I'm hosting is just to make a vertical slice, think about a game concept, and just throw it together using just basic shapes in Unity, start getting some of the logic down, and then start building out from there. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and check out my game jam, and we'll see you next time.